A mother bobcat begged for help. What the vet did next shocked everyone. One stormy night, a wounded predator dragged herself to a quiet clinic's door not to attack, but to plead for her life and for the lives of her hidden cubs. The vet's choice to help seemed like compassion, but it unleashed a storm of fury from powerful enemies who would stop at nothing to silence him. As secrets surface and danger closes in, the question isn't just whether the animals will survive, it's whether the man who dared to save them can survive the truth that comes with them. What did the bobcat bring to his door that night? And why will it change everything? Before we start, take a moment to comment your name or city. It's my way of remembering that behind each play is a real heartbeat. The rain lashed against the windows of the small veterinary clinic as Dr. Nathan Harlow finished updating his patient files. The clock on the wall showed 11:30 at night, and he rubbed his tired eyes, thinking about the warm bed waiting for him at home. Thunder crashed outside, making the old building creak and groan. That's when he heard it. Desperate scratching at the back door, barely audible over the storm. Nathan froze, his pen hovering over the paperwork. The sound came again, more urgent this time. "Hello," he called out, though he knew no person would be at the clinic's back entrance at this hour. The scratching continued, accompanied by a low, pained sound that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. Nathan grabbed the flashlight from his desk drawer and walked cautiously to the back door. Through the small window, he could see only darkness and sheets of rain. His hand hesitated on the doorknob as common sense warred with curiosity. But something in those sounds spoke of desperation, not threat. When he finally opened the door, the sight before him stole his breath. A large bobcat lay collapsed on the concrete step, her tawny fur matted with blood and rain, her sides heaved with labored breathing, and her amber eyes fixed on him with an intensity that seemed to pierce his soul. "Oh my God," Nathan whispered, crouching down slowly. The wound in her side was clearly visible, a bullet hole that still seeped blood. His train, I could tell the shot had been meant to kill, but somehow she had survived long enough to find help. A soft mewing from the darkness drew his attention. Two small shapes huddled beneath the overhang of the building, cubs, no more than a few months old. Their spotted fur was soaked through, and their eyes were wide with fear as they watched their mother struggle to breathe. "It's okay," Nathan said softly, though he knew the wild animals couldn't understand his words. "I won't hurt you." The mother bobcat's eyes never left his face. There was something in her gaze that transcended the usual barrier between human and wild animal, a desperate plea for help that touched something deep in Nathan's heart. Despite years of training that warned against handling injured wild predators, he knew he couldn't turn away. Moving with deliberate slowness, Nathan shrugged off his lab coat and carefully draped it over the wounded animal. The fact that she didn't resist or try to scratch him confirmed his fears about how badly she was hurt. As gently as he could, he scooped her up, cradling her against his chest. "Come on, girl," he murmured. "Let's get you inside where it's warm." The cubs cried out as he lifted their mother, but they remained hidden in the shadows, too frightened to follow. Nathan's heart ached for them, but he knew he had to focus on the immediate crisis. The mother's breathing was becoming more labored with each passing moment. Inside the clinic, Nathan laid her carefully on his examination table, under the bright lights. The severity of her wound became clear. The bullet had torn through muscle and possibly nicked her lung. It was a miracle she'd managed to travel any distance at all, let alone find her way to his clinic. "You're one tough mama, aren't you?" he said softly, reaching for his supplies. The bobcat's eyes followed his movements, but she remained still, as if she somehow understood he was trying to help. As Nathan prepared to clean the wound, he couldn't shake the feeling that this moment was different from any other in his career. He'd treated countless animals, domestic and wild, but never had one sought him out like this. Never had a wild creature shown such trust, even in its darkest hour. The rain continued to pour outside, and occasionally he could hear the faint cries of the cubs calling for their mother. Every instinct told him this was dangerous, that wild predators were unpredictable, and that he was taking an enormous risk. But as he looked into the bobcat's eyes, seeing the fierce will to live there, he knew he had made the right choice. This wasn't just about saving one animal's life anymore. This was about honoring the trust this creature had placed in him, about proving that compassion could bridge the gap between wild and tame. With steady hands and a determined heart, Nathan began the delicate work of saving his unusual patient's life, knowing that this night would change everything. The mother bobcat's surgery lasted well into the early morning hours. Nathan's hands remained steady as he worked, though exhaustion pulled at his bones. The bullet had torn through muscle and lodged dangerously close to her lung, but somehow had missed any vital organs. It was the kind of lucky break that made Nathan believe in miracles. "There you go," Girl, he murmured as he finished the last careful stitch. You're going naked. The sun was just beginning to rise when Dr. Sarah Chen, his closest colleague from the neighboring practice, burst through his clinic door. Her face was tight with concern. Nathan, I heard you brought in a wild bobcat last night. Have you lost your mind? She stared at the sedated animal on his table. Shaking her head in disbelief, Nathan carefully cleaned his surgical tools as he explained. She came to me, Sarah. You should have seen her. She literally dragged herself to my door. That's exactly my point. A wounded predator is the most dangerous kind. And I heard there are cubs too. Sarah's voice rose with incredulity. You're using up valuable medical supplies on an animal that kills people's pets and livestock. She's a mother trying to protect her babies, Nathan replied quietly, his jaw set. That bullet wound wasn't an accident. Someone tried to kill her. Sarah threw up her hands. Maybe they had good reason. You can't save every stray that comes along, especially not dangerous ones. Word spread quickly through their small town. By noon, Nathan's phone was ringing constantly with calls from concerned citizens and disapproving colleagues. Dr. Miller, the senior veterinarian in the county, left a scathing voicemail about inappropriate use of medical resources and endangering the community. Nathan ignored them all, focusing instead on his patient. The mother bobcat was recovering. Well, her breathing stronger with each passing hour, but his heart ached for her cubs, still hiding somewhere outside. He could hear their faint cries growing weaker as the day wore on. That evening, Nathan prepared 2 small bowls, one with water and another with soft cat food mixed with formula. Moving slowly, he placed them just outside the clinic's back door, then he retreated inside and waited, watching through the window. At first, nothing happened. Then, like tiny shadows, the cubs crept forward. They were even smaller than he'd realized. Their spotted fur dull with hunger and fear. The larger cub took the first tentative lap of water, while its sibling watched nervously. Within minutes, both were eating ravenously. Nathan felt something catch in his throat as he watched them. That's it, he whispered. You're safe here. The next morning, Bill Thompson from the local feed store cornered him outside the clinic. Heard you're harboring those killer cats, Doc, he said. His usual friendly demeanor replaced with a cold stare. Folks around here won't take kindly to that. Those things have been picking off chickens and small pets all season. They're living creatures that need help, Nathan replied firmly. I took an oath to heal animals. Bill, I didn't specify which kinds. You're making a mistake, Bill warned. People are talking. They're saying you've lost your perspective. The criticism stung. But Nathan couldn't forget the trust in the mother bobcat's eyes when she'd sought his help. Each day, as she grew stronger, he saw more of her fierce intelligence and gentle devotion to her cubs, who were now regularly appearing at feeding time, a week into their stay. Nathan was cleaning the mother's wound when Dr. Chen visited again. She watched from the doorway as he worked, her expression softening slightly at the sight of the bobcat's careful stillness under his touch. You really believe in this, don't you? She asked quietly. Nathan nodded, not looking up from his work. These animals aren't the monsters everyone thinks they are. They're just trying to survive. Like all of us. Sarah sighed. The town council is talking about filing a formal complaint. They say you're putting everyone at risk. Let them talk, Nathan replied, his voice firm but gentle. I'm not turning these animals away. That evening, as Nathan set out food for the cubs, he was surprised to find them waiting for him. Instead of running away, they stayed just a few feet from the door, their young faces turned up to his. Slowly, carefully, he sat down on the step. The cubs watched him with bright, curious eyes. Your mama's getting better, he told them softly, and I promise you'll both be okay too. As if they understood, the cubs inched closer, close enough that Nathan could see their individual whiskers and the unique patterns of their spotted coats. One of them made a small chirping sound, so different from their earlier desperate cries. In that moment, Nathan knew with absolute certainty that he'd made the right choice despite the ridicule, despite the threats and criticism. He would see this through. These remarkable creatures had chosen to trust him, and he would honor that trust, no matter the cost. The morning sun cast long shadows across Main Street as Conrad Devereaux's black SUV pulled up in front of the Tall Pines Hunting Lodge. The imposing 3-story building dominated the town square, its mounted trophy heads visible through every window. Conrad stepped out, his expensive hunting boots crunching on the gravel. Mr. Devereaux called out Tom Miller, one of the town council members, hurrying across the street. Have you heard about what's happening at the Harlow Clinic? Conrad's weathered face darkened. About the vet harboring those wild cats. Yeah, I've heard. His voice was gruff, carrying the weight of someone used to being obeyed. It's causing quite a stir, Tom continued. falling into step beside Conrad. Some of our regular hunters are already talking about canceling their bookings. They're saying if the town's gone soft on predators, maybe they should take their business elsewhere. Conrad stopped abruptly, his broad shoulders tensing. How much are we talking about? 3 cancellations already. These are big spenders, Mr. Devereaux, the kind that book your premium packages inside his office. Conrad paced behind his mahogany desk. The walls were lined with his most impressive trophies: bears, mountain lions, and yes, bobcats. Each one represented thousands of dollars in revenue for his lodge and, by extension, the town. "Give me Mayor Phillips on the phone," he barked at his secretary. Within minutes, the mayor's familiar voice filled the room. "Conrad, I was just about to call you," Mayor Phillips said. "The situation with Dr. Harlow is going to stop," Conrad cut in. "That bleeding heart is threatening everything we've built here. Do you know how many jobs depend on my lodge? How many families eat because hunters come here? Now, Conrad," the mayor's voice turned placating, "I understand your concern, but Dr. Harlow hasn't broken any laws. He's a licensed veterinarian who's giving aid and comfort to the very predators we pay good money to control." Conrad slammed his fist on the desk. "Those cats are vermin. They kill livestock. They threaten pets. And now we've got some city-educated fool treating them like house cats. The town council is meeting next week. We can discuss." "Next week isn't good enough," Conrad growled. "You remind that vet who really runs this town. Remind him how many of your constituents depend on hunting tourism. Make him understand that his little animal sanctuary act isn't welcome here." After hanging up, Conrad stood at his office window, glaring down at the town he'd helped build. His father had started this lodge 40 years ago, and Conrad had transformed it into the county's biggest employer. He funded the new library, sponsored every local festival, and kept the town's economy alive when the logging industry died. Now some young veterinarian thought he could challenge all that. As evening approached, Conrad drove his SUV past Nathan's clinic. The lights were still on inside, and through the window, he could see Nathan tending to the injured bobcat. The sight made his blood boil. 2 small shapes darted around the back of the building, the cubs, no doubt. He pulled into the parking lot of the diner across the street, where several of his regular hunting guides were finishing their dinner. They looked up as he entered, nodding respectfully. "Boys," Conrad said, sliding into their booth, "I think it's time we sent Dr. Harlow a message. Nothing too obvious, mind you. Just something to help him understand where he stands in this town." The men exchanged knowing looks. They'd all worked for Conrad long enough to know what he meant. Later that night, after Nathan had finally gone home, 3 figures moved through the darkness behind his clinic. The hiss of spray paint broke the silence as bright red letters appeared on the white wall: "Traitor." When Nathan arrived the next morning, he stood staring at the vandalism, his hands clenched at his sides. Inside, the mother bobcat watched him through the window, her yellow eyes alert and knowing. The cubs huddled near her cage, having snuck in through the pet door Nathan had left open for them. "Dr. Harlow," a voice called out. Nathan turned to see Mayor Phillips approaching, looking uncomfortable in his press suit. "I guess you're here about this." Nathan gestured to the graffiti. Among other things, the mayor said, "Look, Nathan, you're a good vet. The town appreciates your work with the farm animals and pets. But this situation with the bobcats, you have to understand the economic realities here." "The economic realities?" Nathan's voice was quiet but firm. "You mean Conrad Devereaux's profits? The hunting lodge employs over 50 people directly. And that's not counting the restaurants, hotels, and shops that depend on the hunters who come here. We're talking about people's livelihoods." Nathan looked back at the clinic, where his patients waited. "And what about what's right, Mayor? What about showing some compassion for the creatures that lived here long before we did?" The mayor sighed, straightening his tie. "Just think about what you're risking here, Nathan. Conrad Devereaux isn't someone you want as an enemy." As the mayor walked away, Nathan got out his cleaning supplies and began scrubbing at the spray paint. Inside, he could hear the soft purring of the mother bobcat as she nursed her cubs. The sound strengthened his resolve. Even as he wondered what this stand would cost him, Nathan knelt beside the mother bobcat's cage, his movements slow and deliberate. Over the past few days, her wound had begun healing nicely, the stitches holding firm. But what amazed him most was the change in her behavior. Where once she had watched him with wary alertness, her amber eyes now held a different kind of attention, something almost like recognition. "Look at you," he murmured softly. "You're getting stronger every day." The cubs, still shy but growing bolder, peeked out from behind a stack of blankets in the corner. Nathan had set up a comfortable space for them near their mother's cage. making sure they could stay close while she recovered. One of the cubs, the smaller of the two, took a tentative step forward. Clara Jennings appeared at his side, her practical shoes quiet on the clinic floor. "They're starting to trust you," she observed, keeping her voice low. She knelt beside Nathan, her presence steady and reassuring as always. "I never thought I'd see anything like this," Nathan admitted. "Wild animals, especially mothers with cubs, they usually avoid humans at all cost." The mother bobcat made a soft chirping sound, and to Nathan's astonishment, both cubs padded forward. The larger one brushed against the cage, connecting with its mother through the bars, while the smaller one crept closer to Nathan's outstretched hand. "Don't move," Clara whispered, her eyes wide. The small cub sniffed Nathan's fingers, its whiskers twitching. Then, in a moment that made his heart skip, it rubbed its head against his hand. The mother watched calmly, showing no signs of distress at this unprecedented interaction. "She's allowing this," Nathan said, his voice thick with emotion. "She's actually letting me touch her cubs." Clara smiled, her own eyes glistening, "because she knows you saved her life. Animals understand more than we give them credit for." A loud bang from outside made them all jump. The cubs scurried back to their corner, and the mother bobcat's ears flattened. Nathan stood quickly, moving to the window. A group of men were loading hunting gear into their trucks in the parking lot across the street, their voices carrying clearly through the glass. "Think the doc will get the message soon?" one asked. "He better," another replied. "Devereaux ain't known for his patience." Clara put her hand on Nathan's arm. "Don't let them get to you. What you're doing here matters." Nathan turned back to the bobcat family. The cubs had ventured out again, playing with each other under their mother's watchful eye. "I know it does. But sometimes I wonder if I'm being selfish, putting the clinic at risk like this." "Selfish?" Clara's voice was firm. "Nathan, you're standing up for something important. This isn't just about one bobcat family anymore. It's about showing that there's another way, that we don't have to exploit everything wild for profit." She moved to check the mother bobcat's water bowl, her movements efficient but gentle. "Besides," she continued, "you're not in this alone. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Nathan felt a wave of gratitude for his assistant's unwavering support. Clara had been with him since he first opened the clinic, sharing his vision of compassionate care for all animals, not just pets and livestock. Her quiet strength had become his anchor, especially now. The mother bobcat made another chirping sound, and this time both cubs bounded over to Nathan. They played around his feet, their previous fear forgotten. One batted playfully at his shoelace while the other rolled onto its back, showing a level of trust that seemed almost impossible for wild animals. "This is extraordinary," Clara breathed. "I've never seen anything like it." "Neither have I," Nathan agreed. He carefully sat down, and the cubs immediately climbed into his lap. Their mother watched from her cage, her eyes half closed in what could only be described as contentment. "This is why we can't give up. They came to us for help, Clara. They trusted us. How can we betray that trust just because some people think wildlife only has value as a trophy?" Clara sat beside him, smiling as one of the cubs investigated her sleeve. "We won't betray them. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Outside, they could hear more trucks arriving at the hunting lodge, more voices raised in anger about the vet, who dared to help predators. But inside the clinic, in this quiet moment of connection between human and wild, Nathan felt his resolve strengthen. The mother bobcat had entrusted him with her most precious possession, her cubs. In doing so, she had given him something precious in return: the certainty that he was doing the right thing, no matter the cost. The cubs eventually settled down, curling up against their mother's cage for a nap. Clara went to prepare their evening meal, leaving Nathan alone with the bobcat family. The mother's eyes met his, and in that gaze, he saw something that made all the threats and hostility fade away. Pure trust, freely given. It was worth fighting for, worth risking everything to protect. Nathan's boots crunched through the autumn leaves as he followed a trail deep into the woods behind Conrad's hunting lodge. He hadn't planned on being here, but a whispered tip from one of Conrad's former employees had led him to this remote spot. Clara walked beside him, her phone ready to document whatever they might find. "Are you sure about this?" she whispered, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "If Conrad catches us on his property, we need proof," Nathan replied quietly. "All these animals coming into the clinic with mysterious injuries, there has to be a reason." They crested a small hill, and Nathan suddenly threw out an arm to stop Clara. There, partially hidden by brush, was their answer: a line of cruel steel traps, their teeth gleaming dully in the filtered sunlight. Some were clearly illegal, banned years ago for their brutality. "Oh my God," Clara breathed, quickly snapping photos. These aren't just regular hunting traps. These are torture devices. Nathan knelt to examine one closer, his jaw tight with anger. This explains everything. The unusual injuries we've been seeing, the missing wildlife. Conrad's been systematically eliminating predators to make hunting easier for his wealthy clients. Clara documented everything meticulously: the location, the types of traps, even the fresh tracks showing recent activity. Look at these markings, she said, pointing to scratches in the dirt. Something was caught here recently. Probably another bobcat, Nathan said grimly. Like our patient's mate, maybe. No wonder she came to us. These traps must have decimated the local population. A branch snapped somewhere behind them. They froze, hearts pounding. But it was just a squirrel. Still, the sound reminded them of their precarious position. We should go, Clara urged. We have enough evidence. They made their way back carefully, taking a different route to avoid being seen. But as they approached the clinic parking lot, Nathan stopped short. All four tires on his truck were slashed, the rubber hanging in ribbons. This is getting serious, Clara said, her voice shaking slightly. She pulled an envelope from under the windshield wiper. Inside was a crude note made from cut-out letters. Mind your own business or else. Nathan crumpled the note in his fist. They're trying to scare us off. They're succeeding, Clara admitted. Nathan, I'm worried. What if next time it's not just the tires? Inside the clinic, the mother bobcat watched them through her cage, her cubs curled against her side. Nathan stood before them, feeling the weight of responsibility settle more firmly on his shoulders. These animals had trusted him. How many others had suffered in those brutal traps? I can't back down now, he said finally. This isn't just about one injured bobcat anymore. Conrad's breaking the law, Clara. He's destroying the ecosystem just to make more money. Clara touched his arm gently. I know. And I'm with you, you know that. But we need to be smart about this. Conrad has friends in high places. Then we'll find someone higher. Nathan pulled out his phone and began scrolling through contacts. I know a journalist who works for the state paper. And I still have connections from vet school who work with wildlife conservation groups. They spent the next hours making calls, sending photos, building their case. Each time they looked at the evidence, their resolve strengthened. The mother bobcat story was just one thread in a larger tapestry of corruption and cruelty. As evening fell, Clara organized their documentation while Nathan tended to their patients. The mother bobcat's wound was healing well, but he knew they couldn't release her family until Conrad's illegal operations were shut down. The forest wasn't safe. I've sorted everything by date and location, Clara said, showing him her carefully labeled files. The wildlife authorities will want. A rock crashed through the window, sending glass spraying across the floor. The animals erupted in panic, dogs barking, cats hissing, the bobcat cubs pressing against their mother. Nathan rushed to check on them while Clara called the police. As they swept up broken glass, Nathan found another note wrapped around the rock. Last warning. Clara's hands trembled as she took photos of the damage. They're escalating. Yes, Nathan agreed, watching the mother bobcat soothe her frightened cubs. But so are we. First thing tomorrow, we're taking everything we found to the authorities. Conrad thinks he can intimidate us into silence, but he's wrong. What changed? Clara asked softly. A month ago, you were just trying to run a small-town vet clinic. Nathan reached through the cage bars to check the mother bobcat's stitches. She allowed his touch. Trusting him completely, she changed everything, he said. She showed me that sometimes doing the right thing means taking a stand, even when it's dangerous. Especially when it's dangerous. The bobcat's amber eyes met his, and in that moment, his doubt vanished entirely. He had a responsibility now, not just to this one family, but to every animal that had suffered in Conrad's traps. The threat to his clinic, even to his safety, seemed small compared to the importance of exposing the truth. Nathan stood in the examination room, carefully removing the mother bobcat's bandages. Clara held the light steady as he inspected the healing wound. The animal lay still, sedated just enough to keep her calm while allowing her to remain conscious. Her cubs watched anxiously from their nearby enclosure. The tissue is healing nicely, Nathan murmured, gently probing the area. But something about this wound has been bothering me. I want to take a closer look at the entry point. He reached for a magnifying glass and leaned in closer. Under the bright surgical light, something metallic glinted deep in the tissue. Nathan's breath caught. Clara, can you hand me the forceps? His voice was tight with concentration. There's something here we missed during the initial surgery. With precise movements, he extracted tiny metal fragments from the wound. They clinked against the steel tray as he placed them down, one by one. Clara's eyes widened as she counted them. Are those bullet fragments? She asked. Bending closer to examine them, Nathan nodded grimly. Not just any bullet fragments. These are from a 338 Winchester Magnum round. He looked up at Clara, his expression grave. It's a specific type of hunting rifle ammunition, very high-powered, very expensive. Clara's face paled. Conrad Devereaux uses that exact type of rifle. Everyone knows about it. He brags about importing it special from Europe. Exactly. Nathan straightened up, his jaw tight. This wasn't some random hunter taking a shot at her. This was Conrad himself. The mother Bobcat's eyes opened slightly, meeting Nathan's gaze. In that moment, he felt the weight of her trust even more deeply. She hadn't just stumbled upon his clinic by chance. She'd come to the one person who might stand against the man who shot her. She must have recognized his scent at the lodge, Clara said softly. That's why she was so desperate to get help somewhere else. She knew she couldn't trust anyone near there. Nathan carefully cleaned the wound and applied fresh bandages. His hands were steady, but inside, he was shaking with anger. All this time, we thought we were just dealing with Conrad's illegal traps, but this is direct evidence that he's personally hunting predators out of season. Clara began photographing the bullet fragments, carefully placing a ruler beside them for scale. This changes everything, doesn't it? It's not just about exposing his operation anymore. We can prove he personally broke the law. That's why he's been escalating the threats, Nathan realized. He must have recognized her, known she was the one that got away. When she showed up here, he trailed off, understanding dawning in his eyes. We're not just protecting her anymore, Clara finished. We're protecting evidence against him. Living, breathing evidence. The mother Bobcat purred softly under Nathan's gentle touch as he finished securing the bandage. Her cubs mewed from their enclosure, and he let them out to rejoin her. They immediately snuggled against their mother, drawing comfort from her presence. Look at them, Clara said, her voice thick with emotion. Conrad would have left those cubs orphaned just to protect his hunting business. How many others has he killed? How many families has he destroyed? Nathan watched the small family, feeling his resolve harden into steel. This is the proof we needed. The bullet fragments, the wound pattern, it's all consistent with his weapon. Combined with the illegal traps we documented, he'll fight back harder than ever, Clara warned. But her voice was firm. He knows what this could do to him. His reputation, his business, everything he's built. I know. Nathan carefully stored the bullet fragments in an evidence bag. But she trusted us with her life, trusted us with her cubs. She's given us the key to bringing him down. We can't let her down now. Clara squared her shoulders. Her earlier fear replaced by determination. Then we'll fight harder too. For her cubs. For every animal he's hurt. The mother Bobcat stretched out on her bed, her cubs nestled safely against her side. Her amber eyes stayed fixed on Nathan, filled with a wild intelligence that seemed to understand far more than anyone might expect. She had brought her family to him, trusting him not just to heal them, but to protect them, to fight for them. Document everything, Nathan instructed, carefully labeling the evidence bag. Every detail about the bullet fragments, every measurement of the wound. We need this to be airtight when we take it to the authorities. Clara nodded, already typing notes into her tablet. I'll contact that wildlife conservation officer who helped us last month. She'll want to see this right away. The discovery hung heavy in the air between them, the peace that transformed their struggle from a local dispute into something far more serious. This wasn't just about saving one family of bobcats anymore. It was about exposing Conrad's direct role in the systematic destruction of local wildlife. The mother Bobcat's desperate journey to Nathan's clinic had set in motion events that could finally bring Conrad's cruel empire crashing down. The call came just before midnight. Nathan jolted awake to his phone buzzing frantically on the bedside table. Clara's voice crackled through, tight with panic. Nathan, the shelter's on fire. Conrad's men, I saw their trucks leaving the cubs. Her words dissolved into coughing. Nathan's heart stopped. The wildlife rehabilitation shelter, where they'd moved the cubs yesterday, was supposed to be safer than his clinic. He'd thought the extra security cameras and round-the-clock staff would protect them. Call the fire department, he shouted, already pulling on his boots. I'm on my way. The night air hit him like a slap as he ran to his truck. Even from 2 miles away, he could see the orange glow against the sky. His hands shook as he jammed the key into the ignition. Flames were already consuming the shelter's roof when he screeched into the gravel parking lot. Clara stood with 2 other volunteers, their faces illuminated by the inferno. Black smoke billowed from the windows. The fire department's 10 minutes out, Clara coughed. But the cubs, they're still inside. We couldn't reach them through the smoke. Nathan didn't hesitate. He grabbed a wet cloth from one of the volunteers and pressed it over his nose and mouth. The heat hit him like a wall as he shouldered through the front door. Nathan, no. Clara screamed behind him. Inside was hell. Thick smoke burned his eyes and throat. The crackling of flames drowned out everything except his own ragged breathing. He dropped to his hands and knees, crawling toward the isolation room where they'd housed the cubs. A burning beam crashed down beside him, showering him with sparks. The floor was hot enough to blister his palms, but he could hear the cubs crying now high, terrified squeals that cut through the roar of the fire. The isolation room door was blocked by fallen debris. Nathan heaved himself up, ignoring the searing pain as he shoved aside burning chunks of ceiling. His jacket sleeve caught fire. He beat it out against his leg without stopping. Finally, the door gave way. Through the smoke, he saw the cubs huddled in the corner of their enclosure, pressed against each other in terror. The smaller one wasn't moving. Nathan stumbled forward, fumbling with the latch. His lungs screamed for clean air. The conscious cub hissed in fear, but allowed him to scoop them both up, tucking them inside his jacket. The journey back seemed endless. The smoke was even thicker now, the heat more intense. Nathan couldn't see the exit. He crawled blindly, one arm protecting the cubs, the other feeling his way forward. His vision started to dim at the edges just when he thought he couldn't go another foot. Cool air hit his face. Hands grabbed him, dragging him the rest of the way out. He collapsed onto the gravel, chest heaving as he tried to breathe. The cubs, he gasped, help them. Clara was already pulling them from his jacket. The larger cub squirmed and coughed but seemed alert. The smaller one lay still, its tiny chest barely moving. Nathan forced himself up onto his knees, ignoring the burns on his hands. He gently took the limp cub, tilting its head back to clear its airway. Its pulse was thread-thin under his fingers. Come on, little one, he whispered hoarsely. Fight? He began chest compressions with 2 fingers, careful to use just enough pressure. After what felt like forever, the cub shuddered and coughed. Its eyes fluttered open, focusing weakly on Nathan's face. Relief made him dizzy, or maybe it was the smoke inhalation. He sagged forward, vision graying out again. The last thing he heard was Clara shouting for paramedics as his body finally gave in. He woke briefly in the ambulance, an oxygen mask over his face. Clara rode with him, holding his hand. The cubs were safe in a carrier on her lap, both breathing steadily now. You could have died, she said, tears tracking down her smoke-smeared face. Conrad, he really tried to kill them, to kill you. Nathan squeezed her hand weakly. The message was clear. Conrad would stop at nothing to silence them. The fire wasn't just meant to destroy evidence, it was a warning. Cross him again, and next time they might not be so lucky. But looking at the cubs, alive and fighting despite everything, Nathan felt his resolve strengthen. Conrad's violence had only proved how desperate he was and how much he had to lose. When the truth came out, the paramedic adjusted Nathan's oxygen flow, frowning at his vitals, but Nathan barely noticed the pain of his burns or the rawness in his lungs. He kept his eyes on the cubs, drawing strength from their survival. They had trusted him with their lives, and he would not let them down no matter what Conrad threw at them next. Nathan stared at the mounting bills spread across his kitchen table, his bandaged hands trembling. 3 days had passed since the fire, and the harsh reality of his situation was becoming clear. The clinic's bank account was nearly empty. Most of his regular clients had stopped coming, scared away by Conrad's influence. An eviction notice for the clinic lay on top of the pile, 2 months behind on rent now. Nathan picked it up, then let it fall from his aching fingers. His throat still felt raw from the smoke, and the burns on his hands throbbed constantly. Maybe they're right, he said quietly when Clara came to check on him that morning. I can't keep fighting like this. The clinic's finished. I should just... Don't you dare finish that sentence, Clara cut in sharply. She set down a fresh cup of coffee in front of him, then pulled up a chair. We've come too far to give up now. Nathan shook his head, gesturing at the bills. Look at this, Clara. I'm broke. The clinic's reputation is destroyed. Even if we expose Conrad, who's going to want to bring their animals to the vet who almost got himself killed over some wild predators? The people who believe in doing what's right, Clara said firmly. She reached into her bag and pulled out a thick folder. And we have everything we need to prove Conrad's illegal hunting operations. The bullet fragments matching his rifle, photos of the illegal traps, testimony from former employees about the poison bait he uses. Nathan rubbed his tired eyes. Evidence won't pay these bills or rebuild trust with the town. A soft scratching sound drew their attention to the back room. Through the open door, they could see the mother Bobcat in her recovery kennel. She had been distraught when they first brought the cubs back from the fire, frantically checking them over despite her own injuries. Now she lay on her side, letting them nurse while tenderly grooming their singed fur. Clara touched Nathan's arm. Look at her. After everything she's been through being shot, almost losing her baby, she hasn't given up. She's still fighting, still protecting what matters. Nathan watched as the mother bobcat gently nudged one of the cubs, guiding it to feed. Despite her wounds, despite the trauma they'd all endured, she remained focused on keeping her family alive. There was something profound in that simple act of nurturing. When she first came to your door, Clara continued softly, she could have found any place to hide, but she chose to trust you. She knew you would help, even though humans had hurt her. That trust means something, Nathan. It's worth fighting for. The mother bobcat looked up, meeting Nathan's gaze with those fierce amber eyes. He remembered that stormy night, how she had dragged herself to his clinic. Desperate but determined, she had risked everything to save her cubs. Could he do any less? Nathan straightened in his chair, some of the heaviness lifting from his shoulders. You're right, he said. We can't stop now. Those cubs deserve a chance to grow up wild and free, without Conrad's traps waiting for them. Clara smiled, opening the folder to reveal meticulously organized evidence. I've made copies of everything and stored them in 3 different locations. We have dates, times, photographs, everything we need to prove what Conrad's been doing. It won't be easy, Nathan warned. He's already shown how far he'll go to stop us. The fire was just the beginning. I know, Clara said quietly, but you're not fighting alone. She squeezed his hand gently, mindful of the burns. We'll face whatever comes together. Nathan looked again at the mother bobcat and her cubs. The smaller one, the one he'd resuscitated after the fire, was curled contentedly against its mother's side, finally strong enough to purr. Their quiet bond reminded him why he'd become a vet in the first place, to protect and heal, to stand between the vulnerable and those who would harm them. Okay, he said, pulling the folder closer. Let's go through everything. We need to make sure our case is airtight before we take it to the authorities. Clara nodded, her eyes bright with determination. I've already started reaching out to wildlife conservation groups. Once this story breaks, Conrad won't be able to hide behind his money and influence anymore. As they began reviewing the evidence, the sound of the cubs purring filled the quiet room. Nathan's injuries still hurt, and the stack of bills hadn't gotten any smaller. But his sense of purpose had returned, stronger than ever. Whatever the cost, whatever sacrifices lay ahead, he would see this through. The mother bobcat had trusted him with her family's survival. He would not let her down. The autumn forest was eerily quiet as Nathan followed the trail of illegal traps he'd discovered. Mist clung to the ground between the trees, and fallen leaves muffled his footsteps. He needed photographs of the latest trap sites as final proof of Conrad's operations. The afternoon light was fading fast. A twig snapped somewhere behind him. Nathan spun around, his heart pounding. Nothing moved in the shadows between the trees. Still, an uneasy feeling crept over him. He quickened his pace, keeping his camera ready. The crack of a rifle shot shattered the silence. Bark exploded from a tree inches from Nathan's head. He'd up behind a thick oak trunk as another bullet whizzed past. Did you really think I'd let you destroy everything I've built? Conrad's voice boomed through the trees. You should have stayed with your pet cats, Doctor. Nathan's hands shook as he pressed himself against the tree. Conrad was hunting him like an animal. He could hear the man's heavy boots crunching through the leaves, getting closer. The evidence is already out, Nathan called back, trying to keep his voice steady. Clara's taken copies to the authorities. Killing me won't save you. Another shot rang out. Closer this time. Then I have nothing left to lose. Do I? Nathan ran. He crashed through undergrowth, branches whipping his face as he fled deeper into the forest. His foot caught on a root and he stumbled, rolling down a leaf-covered slope. His camera went flying. He scrambled to his feet, but found himself in a small clearing with no cover. Conrad appeared at the top of the slope, rifle aimed steadily at Nathan's chest. His face was twisted with rage and something else, a wild desperation. That made him even more dangerous. You're just like these predators you love so much. Conrad snarled. You think you're protecting something, but you're destroying a way of life. My way of life. By poisoning the forest, by breaking every hunting law that exists. Nathan held his ground though his legs trembled. You're not protecting anything. You're just killing for profit. Conrad's finger tightened on the trigger. Goodbye, Doctor. Say hello to your bobcat friends in hell. A blur of tawny fur launched from a rocky outcrop behind Conrad. The mother bobcat slammed into his shoulder with a fierce screech. Conrad yelled in shock and pain as sharp claws raked his arm. The rifle discharged harmlessly into the air. Nathan didn't hesitate. He charged forward and tackled Conrad, wrestling for the weapon. They rolled in the leaves, trading punches. Conrad was stronger, But Nathan fought with desperate intensity. He managed to wrench the rifle away, throwing it far into the underbrush. Conrad's fist caught Nathan's jaw, sending him sprawling. But before the larger man could press his advantage, the bobcat darted between them. For bristling as she faced Conrad with bared fangs, her amber eyes blazed with protective fury. "Nathan," Clara's voice rang through the trees. "Nathan, where are you?" Heavy footsteps approached from multiple directions. Flashlight beams cut through the growing darkness. "Over here," Nathan shouted. "We're over here." The sheriff and 3 deputies burst into the clearing, weapons drawn. Clara was right behind them, her face pale with worry. The mother bobcat melted away into the shadows as the officers surrounded Conrad. "Conrad Devereaux, you're under arrest," the sheriff announced, holstering his gun to pull out handcuffs. "We've got enough evidence of illegal hunting operations to put you away for a long time. Attempted murder's just going to make it worse." As the deputies led Conrad away, Clara rushed to Nathan's side. "Are you okay? When I saw your car at the trailhead, I knew you'd gone to check the trap sites. I was so worried he'd found you." "He did," Nathan said, touching his bruised jaw. "But I had some unexpected help." He looked toward the rocks where the mother bobcat had disappeared. She was gone. But he could have sworn he heard a soft growl of satisfaction from the underbrush. Clara helped him stand. "The wildlife authorities are reviewing all our evidence. They're shutting down Conrad's hunting operation completely. It's over, Nathan. We did it." Nathan picked up his battered camera, amazingly still intact. "No, we all did it. Even she knew what was at stake." He smiled despite his aching jaw. "Come on, let's go check on those cubs. I think their mother's earned some extra treats tonight." They walked out of the forest together as dusk settled over the trees. Behind them, unseen, the mother bobcat watched them go. She had recognized Nathan's scent, known he was a friend who needed protection just as he had protected her family. Now her cubs would have a safer forest to grow up in, free from Conrad's traps and rifles. Justice had come to the forest at last, brought by an unlikely alliance between a compassionate vet and a fierce mother's heart. The autumn colors had never looked more vibrant as Nathan stood at the edge of the forest clearing. 2 weeks had passed since Conrad's arrest, and the morning air held the crisp promise of change. Behind him, Clara helped ready the large animal carrier containing the mother bobcat and her cubs. Their release day had finally arrived. News of Conrad's illegal hunting operation had spread through the town like wildfire. The same people who had once whispered against Nathan now stopped him in the street to shake his hand. Mayor Thompson had even issued a formal apology at the town council meeting, acknowledging that Nathan's dedication to protecting wildlife had exposed crimes that had poisoned their community for years. "Ready?" Clara asked softly, moving to stand beside him. She wore the same gentle smile that had supported him through the darkest days of their struggle. Nathan nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "Let's give them back their freedom." Together, they carried the carrier deeper into the clearing. Setting it down in a patch of morning sunlight, Nathan knelt beside it, peering through the mesh. The mother bobcat's amber eyes met his, calm and steady. Her wounds had healed completely, leaving only faint scars beneath her fur. The cubs, nearly twice the size they'd been when they first arrived, pressed against her sides. "You know," Claire said, "half the town wanted us to keep them as some kind of tourist attraction. They still don't quite understand." Nathan shook his head. "They belong to the wilderness. That's what we fought for, the right to live free." He reached for the carrier door, but paused as memories washed over him. The stormy night when the mother bobcat had trusted him with her life. The quiet hours spent watching her cubs grow stronger. The terror of the fire, and the triumph of Conrad's arrest. Each moment had changed him, reshaping his understanding of his calling as a veterinarian. With steady hands, he unlatched the carrier door. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the mother bobcat emerged, her movements graceful and sure. She paused in the grass, sweeping her gaze across the clearing as her cubs tumbled up behind her. The little family moved a few steps away, but instead of disappearing into the trees, the mother bobcat turned back. She approached Nathan with deliberate steps until she stood right before him. Her cubs, emboldened by her example, followed. Nathan held perfectly still, hardly daring to breathe. The mother bobcat stretched her neck forward and touched her nose to his hand, a gesture of such gentle trust that tears sprang to his eyes. Then she stepped back, gathered her cubs with a soft chirp, and led them toward the forest. At the tree line, she paused one final time, looking back at Nathan. Sunlight caught her fur, turning it to burnished gold. Then she melted into the shadows with her family, leaving only rustling leaves in her wake. "Oh, Nathan," Clara whispered, wiping her own eyes. "That was beautiful." He stood slowly, his heart full. "You know, when I first opened my clinic, I thought success meant having wealthy clients and their expensive pets. I was so wrong. He turned to face her, seeing his own certainty reflected in her expression. This is what I was meant to do. Stand up for creatures who can't defend themselves, no matter how unpopular that makes me. Not so unpopular anymore, Claire reminded him with a smile. Did you see the waiting room this morning? It was packed with people wanting to support your wildlife rehabilitation program. Nathan laughed softly. Who would have thought? All those donations from folks who used to think I was crazy for caring about predators. His expression grew more serious, but even if they hadn't come around, I wouldn't change what we did. That family taught me something precious about purpose and trust. They gathered up the empty carrier and began walking back toward the clinic. The morning sun warmed their shoulders, and birdsong filled the air with nature's music. Nathan felt lighter than he had in months, as if setting the bobcats free had also released something within himself. The clinic will be different now, he said thoughtfully, more focused on rehabilitation, on helping wild animals recover and return to their natural homes. It won't make us rich, but it will make us proud, Clara finished. And that's worth more than all of Conrad's blood money ever was. Nathan stopped at the edge of the parking lot, taking one last look at the forest. Somewhere in those green depths, a family of bobcats was finding their way home. They had taught him that true healing went beyond mending physical wounds. It meant fighting for the right of every creature to live free and wild. For the first time since opening his clinic, he felt absolutely certain of his path, not as just another small-town vet, but as a defender of the defenseless. It was a purpose worth every risk he'd taken, every hardship he'd endured. In saving that bobcat family, he had found his own salvation. If this story found you at the right moment, subscribe and stay close. Tomorrow's may be the reminder you didn't know you needed.